our meeting with a roll call, please. Here. Present.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Oh. All right, roll call is done now. I wasn't paying attention, sorry. Oh, okay. So, all right, well, we'll move to public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. Do we have any public comment tonight? We do not. Subject B is board correspondence. Does anybody have anything they want to share out?
I can share. I had an opportunity to attend the Courageous Principals Institute this past weekend in Texas with some administrators and cabinet members. That was a really good opportunity.
Anything else? Okay. Subject C is student board member correspondence. Anything you'd like to share out here?
So the 27th, we're having another
Speak up.
You Speak Out. And it's gonna be from 5:30 to 6:30, I believe. And if we need to go any time further, then that should be. It's gonna be located in the DHS. We're still working out a couple of things, but it should be there soon. And then my student committee, we started working on school lunches and what we want to fix at least in the school lunches, because I wanted to start them off with like something like not serious, but I want to work into like more serious things at DHS later. So yeah.
Fantastic. So the Youth Speak Out is next week on the 27th at DHS at 5:30. Okay. And that's for any students in the district to come share whatever they would like to share about. Thank you. Subject D is dedication of DHS Student Commons, and this is Peter Goff. Are you reading the?
Yes.
Yes. And if you could please speak into the microphone. Thank you.
You don't have to worry about that. Well, just before I start though, we are running the IHSA 3A team wrestling dual sectionals, and I was sitting up by a principal and an athletic director just so we can hear the great things that we do with the district. And they said, what a phenomenal facility. So these are people coming, it was in Schaumburg, and they just could not believe. They go, we've never been out here. So just put that out there and let everybody know. But I have the distinction on behalf of Dr. Larson and myself, the dedication of the DHS Student Commons. In memory and recognition of David Goose Gosnell's immeasurable impact on generations of students, colleagues, and the greater community, the DeKalb High School Student Commons will be renamed the David Goose Gosnell Student Commons. David proudly served the District 428 with hard work and passion throughout his 26-year tenure. As previously stated, we lost a giant who gave us all for his family, friends, and District 428. On behalf of Goose's district co-workers, it is an honor to offer this tribute to his considerable and lasting legacy. On the behalf of Dr. Larson and myself, it just, you know, we came up with it in our district meeting, and I looked and I go, I think that would be a great tribute, because I didn't know Goose during the 26 years, but he was one of the first people that I met here, and he was on his Zamboni zipping around, and I can always see him doing that. So I think it'd be a great tribute, and just something that I know his family is very touched by our generosity by naming that. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to come here and present that to the board, and if anyone has any questions or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I think it's great, and thank you for being that thoughtful, and I think it's very appropriate. So I appreciate you coming and presenting this tonight.
It's either that or the Zamboni. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, next is our consent agenda. And it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, items A through G. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
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 I have a question. It said A through G, not A through H.
I'm sorry. Let me reread that. I misspoke. All right. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items A through H. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
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 Thank you for catching that. I appreciate that. Okay, next is old business. Subject A, DHS Upward Bound Trio Spring Break Out of State Field Trip, and this is an action item that was brought to us by Donna Larson. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the out-of-state travel for the Trio Upward Bound Spring Break Trip. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Or or me, whichever.
Yes.
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 Yes. Subject B are the bid results for HMS, Huntley Middle School, and Little John toilet room renovations, and this is an action item that was brought to us by Tammy Carson. It is recommended that the approval of the base bid, alternate bid number 1, and alternate bid number 2 for the Huntley Middle School and Little John Elementary School toilet room renovation project in the amount of $1,140,000 to Irving Construction of DeKalb, Illinois. Is there a motion? I'll move. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Subject C is the Emergency Extension Non-Competitive Procurement Food Service Contract Extension Request for fiscal year 2023-2024. This is an action item that was brought to us by Cindy Carpenter and Armir Doka. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve utilizing the emergency non-competitive process to request an emergency non-competitive procurement contract for food service for fiscal year 2023-2024. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
And then subject D, staffing requests Malta Tyler PE, 0.7 increase to 1.0 FTE. This was brought to us by Billy Wermo and Deetra Salas, and it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the point.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Subject E is the recycle and disposal of surplus technology equipment, and this is an action item brought to us by Ben Vale. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve administration to recycle or dispose of the surplus end-of-life support equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Subject F is the FADASP MOU Article 14 retirement, subject or action item brought to us by Deetra Salas. And is recommended that the Board of Education approve the FADASP MOU the clarification of FADASP retiree health insurance MOU, and this is an action item that was brought to us by Kyle Gertis, and it is recommended that the Board of MOU, and this is an action item that was brought to us by Kyle Gertis, and it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the service agreement with Lifting Up LLC. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll-
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
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 Subject H is the Lifetime Bonds MOU, and this is an action item that was also brought to us by Kyle Gertis. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Memorandum of Understanding with Lifetime Bonds. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Subject I is the resolution abating educational property taxes levied by the Board of Education of DeKalb Community Unit School District number 428, DeKalb County, Illinois, for the 2022 levy year for fiscal year 23 property tax relief grant. This is the first year of the abatement in that 2-year grant, and this was brought to us by Cindy Carpenter and Armir Doka. It is an action item, and it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution abating educational property taxes levied by the Board of Education of DeKalb Community Unit School District number 428, DeKalb County, Illinois, for the 2022 levy year for the fiscal year 23 property tax relief grant. First year of abatement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ariel Holm,
Yes.
David Wondrich,
Yep.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Bennett,
Yes.
Megan Davis,
Yes.
Sarah Logan.
Yes.
And then next under old business is subject J, NIU School of Nursing Building Acquisition. And this is information and, okay.
Good evening, and I'm kind of speaking on behalf of all cabinet. It's something that we've been discussing quite a bit in terms of acquiring the NIU School of Nursing building. And as well, we've discussed it a lot at our FFAC meetings, our Finance Facilities Advisory Committee meetings. We do have a representative here from the community, Jamie Wilrett, who sits on that committee, also a couple of board members as well. So what we're back in September of 22, we had brought to the board an item where we're having initial discussions with NIU with the possibility of acquiring the School of Nursing building. There's information attached to the board agenda item that relates to NIU's desire to have that location as surplus asset. So it is available for them to either sell or to acquire, or for us to acquire it. And we had actually had that building as an asset of the district back until 1987, where it was sold to NIU for their School of Nursing program, which they've been in it since that time. There's also a view of where that building's located. It's on Ridge and Normal on that corner there. And we feel we had approached them probably been going about a year when Tammy originally approached them, Tammy Carson, as a possibility of looking at that location, considering the density of students in that area, and also looking for some more space for our elementary schools. We have various programs at our elementaries and trying also to decrease class size at the elementary level as well. So this looked like a good option to look at that building, look at that space to see if it was something that would be available for us to help with that expansion. And so we've been talking with them and looking at various options as to what that would look like. Right now, we basically back in May of 21, the board did look at the recommendations of the class size committee, that one of the big things that they wanted to do is decrease the class size at the elementary levels. And we really just do not have the space at our current elementaries to do that. And because of where the pockets of students are located. So really we feel like this would be a great option for us to consider and to expand our elementary footprint, as well as to help expand some of our programs or help with the existing programs. We do have mobiles at some of our elementaries as well, so trying to get those mobiles not being used. Right now those mobiles are mostly used for our media centers or for music classrooms, so really trying to get everything back into buildings. So looking at this as an option for the district to use as an asset to help make decisions regarding elementary expansion. Another document that was attached to the board agenda item is a white paper, basically, or an executive summary about the NIU Roberts building acquisition and some of the rationale as to why we feel it would be a good option for the district to have, so we can look at some planning. And there'll be an agenda item right after this where we look at some of those options as well as it's connected to the potential acquisition of this building. So really, kind of the immediate benefits that we're looking at is to have more accessibility and robust educational foundation for our students most in need, reduce classroom sizes, reduce space constraints, which if you talk with Tammy Carson, it seems like every year we're just trying to find more and more space at the elementary level. And really just kind of band-aiding things rather than having a more of a long-term solution. more effectively allocate our resources, accommodate continued growth in specialized programs, and then just add capacity in general to give us that flexibility at the elementary level. Some financial considerations that we were looking at that because we've been talking to NIU about leasing that building with the option to purchase it at the back end, and that structure does not require referendum to basically do with those improvements to that particular building and add on to that building as an elementary or whatever we wanted to add on to. Also, it would be funded internally via our operating funds. We have a healthy fund balance, as well as we've had some of these property tax abatements. Grants that we received for this previous agenda item that you just approved is related to that. Once those abatements are done, then those monies are in our basically our account or our evidence-based funding formula to help support some of these expansions that we'd like to do in the future. So, and looking at some of our surpluses as well in order to fund the construction of whatever we look at doing, or either the construction of a new elementary or whatever we feel is a good option for that building. Another consideration we looked at is the density of students that is in that particular area. It's about 32% of our elementary students live in that north corridor. So really looking for an option that is walkable for students, that is convenient to families. We've had a couple of community conversations back in November where we had community come and give their input regarding the use of that building and what they would potentially like to see for that particular location. We felt that went pretty well. Monica, I mean, she hosted that and did a great job with it. So we've got some very good feedback there. And so that's really that location, and that if we look at our density of students and then where we also have schools in that area, we really just don't have something right there that really could serve those students. We really feel like that's a great location. So that is another consideration that we're looking at in terms of acquiring that building. Right now, the total cost of that building for leasing and then potentially leasing it and then for a lease purchase agreement is $1,860,000 is the price that we've been talking with NIU on that building as well. So I just want to open that up for questions. There was a lot of information attached to the agenda item, so we're here to ask, basically answer any questions. And
sure, I have a question.
mm-hmm.
So Jamie, you're on FFAC. My question is, I'm not sure that this should be an additional agenda item because essentially what we're talking about is what's an agenda item, new business administration, item A, which is new elementary school building options. And this is, was it the spirit of FFAC's recommendation that we purchase this building no matter what option we chose?
No, from the FFAC standpoint, there were three viable options presented, a lot of information on all three of those. Without that discussion on those three options, it seems to me that the cart's in front of the horse on this agenda.
That's what I'm thinking too. So I would like to make a motion to remove item J because FFAC did not recommend that we purchase this building no matter which decision we made, and go ahead and have a discussion on item A, which is the full discussion of all three options. So
Do we need to remove it or table it, I guess?
I think it needs to be removed because FFAC didn't recommend that we buy it no matter what decision we made. That's the recommendation of FFAC.
Okay.
To me, it doesn't matter which we do, but I think we should move on.
Yeah,
So
so I made a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call. So your motion is to remove it from the
To
agenda
remove-
completely.
Yeah, to remove item J and then have the full discussion with item A next, which includes the Roberts purchase, potentially acquisition. So it's everything that's included in J, but it's a full conversation about all the three choices.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we combine the two? I mean, if that's what the board wants to do.
Well, I think that this item needs to be removed, and then we have the conversation. And then we have item A, which includes that.
Well, we've already started the conversation technically, so can it be?
Well, we don't have to, we can move to the next agenda item, I feel like we can table it
But my request is that we remove the item and then have the conversation in the spirit that FFAC intended on item A. That's my motion, and that was seconded, so I just need a roll call.
I don't think we're gonna miss anything. Are we missing anything in terms of the robustness of the conversation if we do that?
No.
Yeah,
Then let's
okay.
just do it, move on.
So roll call, please.
Yep.
No.
Yes.
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 Okay. So, going to new business administration, item A, can you give kind of the full scope of the options?
Yep. So
Thank you,
kind of
Cindy.
tailing off of the discussions we were just having about the acquisition of the NIU School of Nursing, there are options that we have looked at through FFAC of potential use of that building, and then also other options in terms of trying to increase our space at the elementary level.
I just have a quick question. Is
Sure.
there a presentation for the public?
This was on, right?
It's okay.
That
Take
is
your time.
attached.
I just wanna make sure everybody can see the numbers.
So, you know.
That's Can you see that okay?
Okay, so here are the various options that we discussed at FFAC, and we're vetting as we went through this process. We started this process basically back in September with FFAC, and then each meeting there were additional questions that were brought forth, and we addressed those questions, and then looked at the various pieces of information related to our facilities, what our facilities are being used for at this point in time, and some of the space needs that we were looking at. So we also looked at the enrollment study, which basically is telling us from an elementary level, our enrollments are flat to maybe falling in the future, but still what we're looking at is trying to address the needs of the space that we have at this point. With the decrease in class size and bringing some of the programs out of mobiles into buildings as well. So really, it's really addressing the current needs and the space needs that we have at this point without really looking at spikes in enrollment in the next few years. So one of the options we're looking at, what we were just talking about, was the lease to purchase option of the NIU Roberts building and to renovate and add on to that building. As a 3-section elementary school, the estimated building cost is about $28.5 million. At the time when we were talking at FFAC, we did not have the acquisition price, but we have that now, the $1,860,000, so a little over $30 million in totality between the cost of building that elementary and renovating and adding on to that space, as well as the purchase or lease price. Also, because of the leasing of that building, it would not need a referendum to be passed in order to do any construction to that particular location. And additionally, any of the construction costs and acquisition would be handled with our current fund balance and would be supported with our operating funds. So there wouldn't be any additional dollars that we would need to go out to the taxpayers to look for in terms of funding this particular project. So it would be done internally with operating dollars. For that particular one, so you can see the election date, it wouldn't be applicable because there wouldn't be a referendum necessary. The design dates, if we were to decide basically at the next meeting in March to acquire that building, we can start that design process right away. That would happen between March and August of 2023. And then we would start bidding, and construction dates would happen between that September 23 and December 23 date, so in this coming fall. And then actual construction would start in January 24, about a year from now. And it would take about a year and a half to have everything completed for a potential opening for the 25-26 school year. So that is the option if we were to use that particular building in order to put a 3-section elementary. The next we were looking at is if we were to acquire vacant land, if we were to be able to source some vacant land. Usually for a 4-section elementary, you would want to have between 13 to 15 acres, give or take, to have a good footprint in order to fit a 4-section elementary. The building cost for that would be 38 million, and potential purchase price of land would be determined. Because it is acquiring new land, and even though we wouldn't need, we can still fund the cost of this particular building with our operating funds as well, but you still would need to go to referendum because you're building brand new on a vacant piece of property. So you'd still have to go to referendum to ask the voters if to allow the district to construct that particular building. The next election cycle would be March of 2024, so a little more than a year from now. And then the design dates are here. We would start that in April through October of 24. The bid and construction dates between January 25 and March of 25. And then actually starting that construction in May of 25 would take until June of 27. So really that pushes out doing anything for a new building until the 27-28 school year. And that is if the referendum successfully passes. If it does not, we would have to go through the process again, maybe put it on the next ballot for referendum. But then at the very earliest that we'd be able to have a building available would be the 27-28 school year.
And it says, there's a little asterisk that says, assumes referendum is approved, potential to move timeline up 1 year sooner if design process is done in advance. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so if we wanted to start the design process sooner, there's a cost to doing that. They can basically get started somewhat right away, let's just say, and then they can do about 50% of the design up front. So then that way it's pretty much ready to go depending on what the referendum says. And then that's about a cost of about $900,000 to get that process started. So you're paying that money up front and hoping the referendum passes, so then you can kind of start this process a little sooner rather than later. But that is risking putting dollars up front, and then and if the referendum doesn't pass, then we would have to go through the process again. And again, remember, every year there's probably going to be an inflation factor in terms of the cost of construction. So these numbers would probably change as we move forward in the future.
And you have a third option?
Yes. So the third option, if we were to still acquire that NIU building, but we demoed it, we basically created a vacant lot on that particular location. That really acts like if it was the acquisition of vacant land. So then it would be the same process as with vacant land. And again, the space there only allows really for a 3-section because that's about 9 acres. So that's about $31.5 million. And then again, you still have to go through that referendum process, the same timeline I was just talking about in terms of building on vacant land. And then same thing in terms of that design process too, that you could go ahead and do some of those costs up front, but knowing that if the referendum doesn't pass, it's either you can use those designs for another time or depending on what that timeline looks like. So. And
so then before we kind of get into the discussion, just to kind of reiterate Sarah's point, Jamie, as a member of FFAC found value in all 3 of these options and wanted them all 3 to come to the board. Do you want to say anything more about it at all, about the process the FFAC went through?
Just, I'll try and be brief, but I want to thank the
staff.
And
I'm sorry, Jamie. Do you mind stepping up to the mic so that people at home can hear you? Sorry, so I could feel Sebastian looking at me saying, hey, make sure they can hear.
Yeah, I want to thank the staff and what they've done and the information that they've brought. We've got a lot of information to make a good informed decision. And it's an exciting time for the district to be able to make this decision. And kudos to the administration, the board, for putting the district in a place where you have the opportunity to make any of those decisions. And basically out of operating, I don't want to say operating revenue, but current funds and forward-looking funds. As Cindy said, it's been a process looking at the demographic information, as she pointed out, and the enrollment studies and what we're looking at, and also discussing the needs, reducing class sizes and some of those more specialized instruction that's happening these days. The committee wish to bring all three of these options to the board when it come down to the end of the day for this group to consider, because we felt they were all viable options. We didn't feel comfortable making one recommendation. We thought, as important as this is, if we were sitting on the board, we would want to hear all three of these, because ultimately it's you folks in those chairs that are responsible for the decision that's going to be made here. And this is a, this is a 40 or 50 year decision. This is not a 1 year decision, a 2 year decision. It's 40 or 50 years. And there's no wrong decision to be made here. Obviously, we discussed the pros and cons in depth of all these, and there's risk with any of them. Tom Tarazinski has been on the committee, has been a board member. He put it more eloquently than I can, but with regards to the referendum, and that was kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, if you will, in a lot of these discussions, because that is an unknown. But the feeling, Tom expressed it, and everyone to a person on the committee agreed with it from the citizen standpoint, that if you chose to go that route in a referendum, the district has a wonderful message to convey to the public. You have got the ability to build a school without asking the taxpayers for more dollars through your fiscal responsibility over the years and the forward thinking of the district. So what you're asking the citizens to vote on is just to expend current dollars that you have in revenues. And we looked at the revenue forecasts, very conservative in our opinion, and very realistic that this can be done. And you're asking for approval to spend your own dollars already to further the district in placing a school. A very positive message that I can't imagine the citizens when approached that way, and Tom could write it much better than I could. It's just such a positive story for the district that would be turned down. Now, granted, there is a time factor involved also. That's another big issue. But you're going to be 2 years into this regardless if you need class sizes. And when you consider the length of time, like I said, this is a 40 or a 50 year decision. The 2 years is really kind of in the big picture. I know it puts a challenge on the staff and to find space in the short term, but in the long term, it's worth considering. And the ability to, if you look at the vacant land one, maybe there is a place for a 4-section school, should we determine that. Or maybe that could be built where that could be added on in the future. But without belaboring that, that's where the committee was, and wanted all of you to see the all of this information, because you guys are going to sign the bottom line.
Thank you, Jamie. And feel free to stick around for a little bit in case there's more questions. You can sit down if you want, but thank you very much for explaining that.
Thanks, Jamie.
All right. Who wants to open it up?
So I have some questions relative to some of the statistics, because I was looking through them and I wasn't sure I understood exactly what they were saying, but I am on the attachment that says FFAC October 25, and just looking at the number of additional seats and the actual impact to the head count on all of our schools, and I see the grid, so to speak, for current versus our projections. But I guess, I'm looking at some of the schools on here, like Malta is projected to be 180% capacity, Lincoln 120% capacity. With this new school, are we going to be pulling from impacting those schools like Malta, for instance?
We would definitely need to redraw attendance boundaries for sure, because we do. Is that what your question is? Or?
Absolutely what I'm driving at. Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of our students in that neighborhood are bused to Malta.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought so, but that's why I was like, I don't see the one where is there a graph that I haven't found yet?
Well, maybe this one might help. This is the attendance boundaries for our elementaries. This focuses in on the area, okay, kind of right here, where you can see the different colors, meaning that this group here and where the School of Nursing is right here.
Yep.
So this group right here, all these different colors, means they're broken up and being sent to a bunch of different schools all over the place, just in order to make them fit. So really having a school right here in this area really helps, because then now you can kind of take this area here, and in terms of the busing perspective, a student that is 1.5 miles away from a school gets bused. So if you can kind of, you know, take a look at this and maybe 1.5 miles, I'm not very good spatially in terms of that, but you know, if you kind of put a circle around there, it really encompasses where that density is, which is really over in this area where the apartment buildings are.
Are you asking more though, would this accomplish us meeting some of our goals in regards to classroom size
Right. Well,
across the district?
I'm a simple thinker, and the question is always, no matter what we do, are we solving the problem, right? And how many problems do we have? And it sounds like we have a problem with, you know, classroom size, not just in our elementaries, and the building we're sitting in actually is one of the bigger problems that we have. And so, you know, as I'm looking at, okay, which does either of these options of the three impact all of our problems in one fell swoop, or is it going to be this and then something else, and what is that something else going to look like? I'm still trying to wrap my head around that part.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that if we can find a place to build a school for 38 million, that's exactly what we want and bigger. I think that's smarter than spending 30 million on a school that we have to renovate. It's not going to meet our needs. But then again, you have to buy the land, and you have the referendum piece, so that complicates things. I get that. But I guess to me, what I would love to see is a chart, sort of like on slide 16, that would also show, okay, if we build option 1, this would be our average classroom size for all these buildings, and if we went with option 2, this is what it would look like. I think it would be helpful for me to see, to sort of help visualize. Do we have that?
What you're looking for is on slides 14 and 15. 14
Okay, maybe I missed it.
shows adjusting our classroom cap to meet our goals, and also putting all of our music and art in a classroom, and removing all of our mobiles except for the one at Lincoln. And we need just over a 2-section building to be able to do that. And then, and then on slide 15 shows adding a 2-seat cushion in each classroom, and then getting all of those mobiles gone except for the one at Lincoln. And that, to do that, we would need over a 3-section building. And that's just for elementary though. That doesn't account for middle school or ELDC, which is what we have talked about that. We applied for a grant and we didn't get it for the ELDC. Because right now we have how many classrooms in ELDC? We just opened another one.
I believe we're up to
11 or
I would say 12.
11 or 12. And we have a waiting list for our preschool for all expansion, our preschool for all program.
So if we need, you're saying just over a 3-section would satisfy all of those items that you talked about, minus the ELDC, and we could potentially build a 4-section for 38 million without asking for any additional tax money from the taxpayers. We could essentially figure, or my mind says, if we remove the ELDC from Huntley, then we have, from this building, then we have all that more space for our middle school students, which satisfies those space issues.
Well, does it?
But I'm thinking,
That's another question on my list.
Yeah, like how many classrooms, so that opens up 12 classrooms?
Well, I guess I would need to talk with Tammy too to see if there was an option put out there, because she's been talking to the architect by a lot of different options that we've said, hey, what if we did this and what if we did that? So basically, in order to, let's say, solve the ELDC issue, meaning getting more space at the middle schools, and then also an elementary issue, could you put, let's say, on a piece of vacant land that maybe could fit a 4-section elementary, maybe it's a 3-section elementary with an there's with an ELDC, but that's something that we'd have to look at in terms of what that cost would be, because that might be a little bit different cost than just doing a strict elementary, K to 5.
Right, there are a lot more requirements in regards to spacing with under 5. But
Well, it's probably worth it though for us to look at what.
I don't, yeah.
You know, if we have this as an option, we're talking about a 4-section elementary, which we don't necessarily need a 4-section elementary. But I guess I'm thinking that we need to explore these options and the cost.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we're trying to solve these problems. Like,
trying not
this isn't really, these really aren't our only choices, I guess, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
I thought we had touched on would a 4-section accommodate ELDC and FFAC briefly, because I thought if we needed, so a half of a section is 3 classrooms, right?
Yeah.
Section is 6.
6 classes.
Yeah, it's 6.
So
right.
a half of a section
And
is
ELDC is currently 12.
So we need
Right.
a 2.5 section, 2.5 to be able to cover all of the numbers.
Yeah,
that would
you
leave us
understand
with
what
3
it
to 4
is.
classrooms in a year.
Classrooms is easier.
A
for me.
section is a
It's
classroom.
6
Yeah.
classrooms. A section is 6 classrooms.
Section is
Yeah.
K through 5.
And if I could just go back to, so this is good information, but it's challenging for me to sort of put together how that impacts each individual building, because it doesn't actually say that. And what I'm looking for is what is the impact on each individual building, right? Because that to me seems like, because that's where we're at now, right? Like here, we have a problem because we're out of room in this individual building. And if we remove the ELDC and we put it elsewhere, I'd like to know, right? What is the average classroom size now that we've removed that in this building? And what is the impact of that? And I think if we're gonna make any of these decisions, and I don't think that this NIU building acquisition, I don't think we have to race to that at this point. I wouldn't think, right? I mean, I don't think we have to. There's no deadline on it, is there?
No, but the NIU needs to know what our decision is fairly soon to know if they need to move ahead to move out of that building, basically, because they need to relocate their School of Nursing to a different location temporarily until they have their health IT center built.
Do you have a deadline?
Pretty much the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, because they need to do those renovations this spring so they can be prepared for the coming fall for their the School of Nursing.
Well, and I don't want to be insensitive to that. I just think that there's now that we know we're not getting that $10 million, there's some moving pieces here that, and then conceptually, when you look at the numbers, I mean, the $38 million for a brand new building that you get to design versus a $30 million building that you don't, and that may not solve all your problems, and you may have to add on to, we may have to add on to this building, who knows?
I think the key piece is that if we could acquire land in that area.
Sure. I mean,
Because
that's
I think
obviously a big if.
That's where I think that's a major piece of why this is important, or why the Roberts building is,
So I
has
would,
the potential.
yeah, it would be great to know, how all these schools would be impacted by a 3-section or a 4-section individually, not just in general as a district, I guess, because
I do think we talked about that in FFAC in that,
Tammy said it would bring our classroom sizes down to 25 if we were to do just over a 2-section.
Across
Our
the board.
elementary, our
Just
elementary.
right, across the
rebalance out
board
everywhere.
in
At every
elementary. Yeah,
building.
it would,
That
it
didn't-
would, yeah.
Have any discussion of what would happen if we were to take the ELDC out of Huntley, have 12 classrooms open?
Well, I guess
And-
we did talk about that at one point, as
Did-
that potentially alleviates the pressure at the middle school level.
I mean, it would, I don't know if
Right,
how much
but
if it
realistic-
satisfies our.
Well,
right.
it said that it would balance out the
Oh.
Clinton Rosette because they're overflowing over there, and it would be able to balance out and restructure the middle school to make them balance.
To bring our numbers down to what,
Correct.
28 at middle school?
Throughout the
do?
classrooms.
30.
Yeah, I think that was, I don't believe that's 28. I think that was more 30, if I remember
Okay, so 30
correctly.
and then 25 at the elementary.
Right.
Because that's what we committed to with the last.
Yes, and so
Negotiation.
when we had the when we thought it was a possibility that we would have capital grant specifically for our ELDC, we were going to move that out of Huntley, but on the same, well, we had
We were
really,
actually looking at.
we were looking at doing it here.
Yeah, adding on basically to the end
But
of
we've
this
applied
building.
for another grant, correct?
No, it's not
No.
up yet. It's not open yet.
No, we
There's
haven't-
gonna be a
Oh, there's
second
gonna
round.
be a
Yeah,
second-
there'll be a second round, we just don't know what it looks
Okay,
like
so
yet, and it hasn't-
potentially we
yeah.
could have that opportunity then.
I guess I'm from the conversations we had, I don't think from what Tammy had said that the ELDC could fit in a 4 section, because we already have a 2 section full for ELDC, and we have more children that could access it if there were classrooms that are on a waiting list. And we don't have any, like when we have students with disabilities that qualify for early childhood special education, legally we have to open, or we have to be able to provide them slots. So potentially then we have no more space right now, right? So we'd have to shift from our preschool for all, which is also very important.
Well, I guess, so that, I think begs an important question, is exploring, okay, so we're saying 4 section elementary, well, is it, like, what are our specific needs to get us to the size that we need? And if it's $38 million to do this, if we do get another $10 million, like,
right.
what could we build on, you know, new land that would accommodate both potentially, or, you know, how much more could be, I guess what are our other options or possibilities that we could build to accommodate?
What is more urgent, I would say, like, in terms of, is it the junior high classroom size, or is it the elementary classroom size?
Go ahead, because I think staff.
I mean, this is really you, Minerva, I guess, or.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead, because you got the slides for it.
Yes, staff identified that it was the elementary level, and best practices, which we know the earlier you start with providing more or smaller student to teacher ratio, the better it is for that child throughout their educational career. But I wanted to bring your attention to the last slide of that short term, the 3 section would decrease class size to 25. That's something we discussed at FFAC, and if we're able to do a 4 section, it would take it down to about 23.5. That's what we have in our FFAC notes.
Or it gives us just flexibility. I mean, really, it gives us room for potential growth, even though our projections are looking flatline, but that's based on certain assumptions too, in terms of if the building market starts again or residential building starts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things, you know, we don't see anything in the near future, but we don't know what the, let's say 5 years out look like as well.
Is there a difference in cost if we lease a building and just turn it into an ELDC versus having to have it be classroom room?
It depends on where that would be located. I mean, I just don't know what options would look like.
It seems like moving that out of the school is inevitable, right?
Well, I mean, the history of the ELDC has been that it was scattered around in a bunch of elementaries, and I think, Kyle, we had talked to that, like in the past, ELDC, and I know when I first started with the district, it was just, you know, wherever you can find a space, let's put a pre-K classroom in there. And the ELDC is 2 different programs in there as well. It's early childhood education, which is students with IEP, special education needs, which if there's a need out there for that, then we have to supply that need. So now the pre-K program is pre-K at risk. It's a grant-funded program through the state, and that is students come and they get evaluated to see if they need some extra supports before they get into kindergarten. And that's the one where you'll see waiting lists, where we just don't have the space. And it is half-day programs too, so the students are there in the mornings and in the afternoons, so you've got those kids you know, coming in, but again, there's just not enough space to accommodate more kids for the pre-K at-risk program is what they call it.
So if we're just brainstorming here for a moment, I mean, one of your long-term goals is to make community or neighborhood schools. I'm a huge proponent of that myself. If we're shipping all the ELDC kids off to one place anyway, we're really not doing that. I mean, what if we build another 4-section school? Is there a chance that we can move them back into the community schools? Or would there not be enough space for that?
You mean like have each building have their pre-K?
Exactly.
Kind of back to that model.
Because there are a lot of them, right? And so if each school could just have a section for their pre-K, they could stay in their own little neighborhoods and just spread it back out again. If we had another school, we could decrease the classroom size across the district. Is that anything that we've considered yet? Or
yeah,
did we shoot it down?
Yeah, wow. No, it's certainly a model, and we, as Cindy just said, we as a district used to have that. One of the things that is nice about an early childhood center or pre-K center is that you're also able to provide access to the therapies, and you can staff it in a different way. So instead of having staff that have to go out to 8 elementary schools, you really have your staff that's housed at the ELDC can provide speech, OT, PT, and oftentimes that treatment is they treat at the same time, so it's co-treated. So I think there's a lot of benefits the ELDC kind of model that we have, that if we broke it out into individual buildings, we would lose some of that benefit.
What percentage of our kids need sort of accelerated services like that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I mean, what percentage of the kids need sort of that higher level of intervention, so to speak?
I mean, it varies. I think currently right now,
I mean, just in the ELDC, by the way.
it's probably, I don't have an exact percentage off the top of my head that I can quote you. What I know is it's going to fluctuate because it's based on need. So as students qualify, that number
we're talking
can grow
50%,
forever.
10%?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'll say probably around 50%.
Oh, wow.
But I'll come back to you with an accurate number.
I just did the math. So a two-section elementary school is 12 classrooms. A three-section elementary school is 18 classrooms. A four-section is 24. So if we need just over 2 sections to write our elementary numbers, and we're talking about a 4-section, so that would open up not quite 12 classrooms, but a 5-section elementary school is 30 classrooms. So if you take a 3-section, which is 18 classrooms, minus, if you take a 5-section, or 30 classrooms minus 18 is 12 classrooms. So there's your ELDC and your elementary school with potentially additional room, because you've got now 30 classrooms.
Right.
So it's an additional, it's 31.5 million to build a new 3-section. It's 38 million to build a new 4-section. So I would estimate another 6 million to build a 5-section, which would be what, 44 million? Ish.
We don't have space anywhere for a 5-section.
Well, I'm saying if we were able to acquire land to build a 5-section, or if we were able to
outside of the
That's my question to all this. And talking about a new building, this 38 million does not include the cost of the 13 to 15 acres. So what do we estimate a 13 to 15 parcel of land at that acreage to cost on top of 38 million?
I mean, we were looking, and Tammy had looked at some vacant options. I mean, just to see they weren't in the locations that made sense. But the price per acre was about 60 to 65,000 an acre, give or take, depending on location. So it would be in the bulk, probably less than what the NIU building would be, if we're looking at let's say 15 acres at that price. And again, that's just really very, very preliminary.
And then I have to add that classrooms, when we say a section, we still have to account for classrooms for the special services. We still have to account for classrooms for music and art, because one of the things we're trying to accomplish is to get out of the art on the cart, get out of the mobiles. So, I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. I'm sure our taxpayers wouldn't want us to spend money and still be overcrowded the moment we move in.
No, absolutely. I think the whole concept of this conversation is just, we do have one other big problem, and I don't think that this ELDC issue is going away.
It's not.
And so, I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, what if we split them up in 2 buildings, but half of them in one and half of them in a different one, or I just wish that this plan could include somehow addressing the situation where we get the rest of this building back, because our junior highs are overcrowded, and we have to address it, and it's an urgent problem as well. So I feel like it's like 1A and 1B really in terms of the issues I'm hearing. At least that's what I'm feeling from you guys. So, you know, if we could somehow brainstorm in a way to say, okay, how can we still provide all the services, right, so that people aren't going to 8 schools, which I totally get it. That's probably not feasible either. But can we put them in 2 schools? Can we put them in, you know, different places? Can we lease another building and just move the whole thing somewhere else if it's feasible, right? Like I'm sort of just, it would be nice if we could figure out once and for all, okay, what is it that we really need, and stop chasing our tail. And we build something, and like you said, we're already at capacity again. We still haven't solved this problem, and now the school is overcrowded. So
I guess I do think that Tammy has looked at that. I think the reason that this came through FFAC this way is because there's potentially availability either in land or in NIU's Roberts building to build a 3 or 4 section right now within our financial means. And so I don't think that they've lost sight of addressing ELDC or middle school.
I'm just saying, can we leverage a piece of this to help us with the other problem? That's what I'm looking for, right? Is, you know, can we add on? Do we have like enough space like we do here? We have lots of space, but you know, is pushing out that way and adding some more classrooms out of this building a solution, right? And then we just keep moving them out. Although I always feel like, I don't know why, but I just feel like having the ELDC kids maybe away from the middle school is a good thing, but just lots of cars flying around here. But, you know, I don't know. That's kind of where my head is. I'm just trying to free flow and see what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I know Tammy's thought about a lot of different, and we all have, different, and again, when we applied for the grant, that was the plan, is to just basically add on to this building, have 10 million, that was about a $17 million project, I believe, so 10 million being funded by the grant, which really, if we could get that 10 million, or whatever, you know, once that grant is out there again, but I'm not sure what the requirements of that is, or how much they're gonna allow us to apply for again. But if we can get that funding to help support that, then looking at trying to meld it all together makes sense. You know, I get a little nervous because, you know me, I'm nervous about money all the time, right? I should be. And so I want to make sure we're making the right decisions too with the current dollars we have, so we don't have to go out and float bonds that the taxpayers have to pay for. I mean, we'll need to issue bonds because I wouldn't want to take all our fund balance and dump it into a project and not have any cash in the bank. I mean, I think we need to still issue those bonds, pay those bonds through our funds, the existing funds that we have, but I don't want us to get too short as well. I mean, I think we've done a really good job of maintaining that fund balance and increasing our fund balance over the years. I mean, at the time when we were looking at the new high school in New Cortland, and the economy wasn't doing too great at that time, it was very nerve-wracking, I'll be honest with you, because our fund balance wasn't where it was at, like we have it now. So I really feel like we need to be careful in terms of how we spend those dollars, and so really having additional dollars to support it via that grant makes sense. It's just the timing of all of this, you know, how long is it going to take to get there? Tammy, every time, you know, constantly is coming here to the board. I need to go out and bid to make more classroom space. I need to put walls here. I need to, you know, just basically Band-Aid it. We need to put another mobile at an elementary, which we just did. So she's really looking from a long-term perspective. What can we do? Maybe not, you know, next year, but the year after that. And again, that doesn't mean we do want to make the right decision too. I mean, we don't want to be short-sighted as well. We do want to make somewhat a long-term decision, but you know, at what point how long do we want to wait to get there, I guess is the question as well.
Yeah, I guess I saw this as kind of like a phase out, and maybe I'm feeling defensive because we've spent so much time in FFAC going over like everything, right, and and we've had a lot of these conversations, and that's maybe not, you don't have the same context maybe necessarily. I feel like you're saying go back to the drawing board, and that makes me very nervous when we have some viable options. Okay.
In fact, I'd more lean towards, even if we had to acquire the land, we're talking even a couple million, right? It's goes from 38 to 40 million. The reality is, I think a four-section school is the best way to go. I just think we're shorting ourselves going with the NIU building personally. My question is, if we're gonna do that, is there a way to floor plan to say, okay, would we try to leverage any space in that building to do something about the ELDC, or would we not?
Right,
You know,
doesn't
in
have
other
to be a
words, will it
hard
free
line.
up enough room somewhere else that we could consider that, even if it's in Malta? Like, you know, could we pull enough kids out of Malta we could put the ELDC there, right? Like, that's what I'm looking at, is there a way to leverage that bigger building to open up this building, because this building is a problem.
And I feel like we've had this conversation, I'm just trying to remember too, that I remember when we were first talking about the NIU building, we were looking at, wow, would that be a good spot for the ELDC? And I think what we decided was we still would need to do some improvements to that building, but can we do a four-section somewhere else, and then there is an ELDC? From a financial perspective, I would get a little nervous to try and fund it all 100% internally. Meaning that, especially if we didn't get the grant dollars.
Well, we wouldn't have to do the move of the ELDC day one, right? We could get the other school up first and see where we were at with funds, right? And then if it made sense to do it, then we could move it, right? Or no?
But then you're looking, let's see, we're thinking 27, 28, let's just say with the timeline that we had here. And then we're looking, that wouldn't happen until maybe 28, 29, 29, 30. I'm just, just talking about the timeline.
Well, is there a way that we can, and maybe I'm being redundant to what you're saying, but is there a way that we can take a four-section and figure out how we could make that work? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a strict four-section. It's more, the combination. And plus what you're saying is that it's going to, like, if we've got...
I think the problem is that you guys have all figured out already ahead of us, because we're behind, is it's probably all or nothing, right? If you don't want to divide them up, then they kind of have to move en masse out of this building into another one. And it doesn't sound like even if we did a four-section, it's going to be quite big enough to house them and students that we need to move there. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, and you'd be taking away from the elementary space. So I think the thing is, it couldn't be a four-section elementary. It would need to be something smaller elementary-wise, so you can accommodate the ELDC.
But we only need just over a two-section elementary to have the right numbers, right?
2.4 section.
So 2.4. So
2.4 section for the students that we currently have.
Right.
So we need a 4.4 section.
So how many classrooms is that?
Minimally a 4.4 section, which according to Tanny, when she
would be like
presented to the FFAC,
14 or 15.
that particular parcel of land being considered would not house anything over 4 sections.
And is that just single story and not building up? Is there something against building up?
No, I think you could. It just depends on how you design it. And I'm not sure about the codes in terms of how much density you can have on a certain piece of acreage. I mean, it would depend on the size of a vacant
I do
lot.
think that came up during FFAC, and I don't remember exactly what Tammy's answer was, but that it would be difficult to go up is what I remember, but I don't remember what her reasoning was. At least I'm thinking of the NIU land. If we're talking about another parcel land, maybe there's more flexibility and I think it was partially because of how you have to work around the existing structure at NIU. If we were going to go that route to bypass a referendum and have a slightly earlier.
And the location, the density of that location. I don't know if that makes a difference.
But if we found new land and we acquired new land and we had the ability to build up, that would solve the problem, because you could build your 4.5 section or 5 section by just raising some of it up.
Depending on, it would increase the cost, but depending on the amount of land.
Right.
Because the 4-section, the 12 to 15 acres, optimal isn't just classrooms, that's also parking lots and traffic flow and playgrounds and blacktop.
And the core space too, meaning cafeteria, gym, all that kind of stuff.
So
when you're adding,
when you add 5 sections of students, you're adding all of larger of those other spaces.
Did we model it at all yet?
Not
in terms of the increase in cost for a 5 section and all the other.
No.
accoutrement.
I don't think
No.
five
Well, a
section
three
was ever on
section
the
is three
table.
point, 31.5, and a four section is 38.
But if
Based
a
on
ton of the
land.
kids are, I guess I can flip back to this Malta thing just for a moment. I mean, if most of the kids that are going there are busing there anyway,
Mhm.
and they start coming back, how much room is in that school? We can't pick up classrooms in Malta for any IDC or no?
That wouldn't, I don't believe that would be big enough. Because Malta's, they have pretty small classrooms anyway, because the class sizes at Malta are actually lower only because they physically can't put 28 students in an elementary classroom.
We also don't bus preschool for all students right
Mhm.
now. That I think that would be a huge barrier to families if it was out on,
Yeah,
because right now a city bus goes to Huntley Middle School.
Well, the Portland kids probably actually come into town right now, you know, and the Malta kids. So people
For
still travel.
ELDC, yeah, they do.
For the pre-K at risk.
Yeah, I'm
We do
just-
bus the early childhood
Right.
program, because that's
Okay.
required, yeah.
Well, I don't know what we're trying to decide right now, or is this just informational here, isn't it?
Oh, it's informational, yeah.
It's informational with the intention of coming back for action, something.
Yeah, it seems like we.
Yeah, if I had to vote today, I'd probably vote against the NIU building, to be honest. I mean, it just seems like you're throwing good money after bad there. You know, it's not flexible enough, it's not big enough. And if you wanna go up, you can't, because it's structurally an issue. I think it's going to inhibit a lot of things for not a huge amount of savings, honestly, in the big picture. We're talking, as Jamie very astutely pointed out, this is a 40 or 50 year decision we're gonna make. I don't wanna make it on $8 grand. We're dealing with $100 million budget, and 10, what is that?
130, yeah.
But those are my 2 cents, obviously. I don't know what you guys feel, but I would still love to angle out this LPC thing, as you can tell already, but.
I think that I don't know that I'm leaning one way or the other over a 3 or 4 section necessarily, except for the timeline, I think is helpful. And as Jamie said, 2 years in a 40-year picture isn't necessarily a huge thing, but I do think it gets us where we need elementary wise, and helps us get to potentially then start looking at the second phase of addressing ELDC in middle school quicker, maybe.
I guess I don't.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
I guess, I don't know, the referendum does make me nervous. Even if we're not asking taxpayers for money, the way that referendums are worded, it could be, I think it's an uphill battle to get that passed. And I guess the other thing I would just say really quickly is, in looking at these sections, FFAC talked a lot about where the locations of where the district is potentially interested in building to accommodate the most population dense part of our city that doesn't have any kind of elementary school right now. And so, considering that, I know that Tammy did some kind of looking at what land is available. There's not a lot available on the north side of the in the Annie-Gledden North area that could become available, that could accommodate more than a 4 section. I don't think there was any that could accommodate more than a 4 section.
Well, we didn't consider 2 stories either, though, right?
Right.
Which I'm not
Well,
saying
no,
you still
I
need all
think
those
she
things, but
considered though
it's
all
one
the
more section.
spaces that you need to accommodate the amount of students in a 5 section. That's not like the acreage isn't just about width and height. It's about all of the
understand
other
that.
spaces, like having 2 gyms if you have a 5 section.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it's also, some of those things are duplicated, right? And I don't think necessarily the increased size of a playground or the increased size of, you know, the gym's not gonna be any bigger if it's a 4 or 5, probably, at least it probably doesn't need to be, anyway.
Well, I guess
And
if we're being asked to like potentially next meeting vote on building a brand new school and acquiring land. And Tammy has all this information. It'd probably be good to have this discussion when Tammy's here and able to answer a lot of these questions
it'd be good.
publicly. But I mean, this is like a mass, we're building a school, we're talking about building, you know, spending, you know, $40 million potentially. So I think that, number one, that's important, that she be a part of this conversation so that we can have a full, robust conversation for the public, and us. And, again, to your point, Sam, about, you know, the timeline of a year, you know, Roberts isn't going anywhere. It's not for sale. It's, you know, NIU is willing to, you know, they've surplused it. They're willing to, you know, give it to us for just $400,000 over what we paid for it over 20 years ago. So it's not, nobody's like after this building, you know, and if the time crunch right now is based on, you know, that, I don't think that's necessarily quite as big of an issue because it's going to be there. And I'd imagine NIU would want to work with the district to make the best decision to build a school in our community. I just think that
to top on your
we need
point
more
there, too,
information.
is you said something earlier about them shutting it down. I mean, we've reopened shut down buildings before. You know, and if we're gonna gut it anyway, what's the difference? You know, it's not going anywhere. So I would definitely say we would be better not to rush to try to make a decision here without Tammy being here to talk to us about it, and in a situation where there's no way that that building's going anywhere tomorrow. It's gonna be there. There's no competition for it.
And also, I guess, were you gonna present the financial piece the way that you did for FFAC?
I could do that if you want me to.
Well, I think it's important for the community to have that. Were you planning on that?
Well,
Did you want to say something, Jamie?
You might want to stand up by the microphone.
Oh yeah, thank you.
With concerns on land in a appropriate area up there, because of the limited space and the confidentiality, can't get into specifics, but I could acquire and have been approached with plenty of land in that area to more than do what the district is interested in doing. I'll just
5
leave it at that.
sections.
It may take a little bit of horse trading, but you haven't even talked to landowners. I think we'd be shocked at if somebody I don't think there's a very strong market in that area because vacant parcels have been vacant for a long time. And I think the owners, it wouldn't be hard to acquire land. And again, an unqualified opinion, but I have talked to 2 landowners up there and I know that for a fact.
Well, and that's extremely helpful point, but it also tells me that I think we're a little premature in trying to pull the trigger on something until we maybe vet some of that out.
And can I comment on something that you brought up, Sam? You brought up the referendum and you being, you know, a little bit concerned about it not passing. So my question is, if we were to move like with acquiring land and having to go to referendum or even buying the Roberts building instead of the lease to buy and tearing it down to nothing, are we able to communicate to the public about what we're doing in a form or something or multiple forms so they clearly understand that it's not, I think when people hear the word referendum, they think, oh my God, my taxes are going to go up. And and if they're not informed, that's a serious no when the taxpayers are going to vote. But if they have all the information and understand all the details, I'm just saying, we have the ability to do that as a district, correct? Inform the public?
I think you run a campaign. I don't know that the district does, but a community group would run a campaign.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have the ability in some way, whether it is a community, can get the word out. Because I think that it's all about knowledge. If they have the right information, people are going to vote for what's best for the community. If it's not hitting their pocketbook. I mean.
And honestly, like dealing with the classroom size would benefit the district in so many other ways, right? With teacher retention, you know, with honestly just attracting people. I'm sure with educating kids would be better in that environment. So, you know, I think if we can gather a little bit more information regarding, you know, maybe what potential landowners might be interested in parting with some land, and if we do have the money to build a 5-section school, and we can move our ELDC out, and we can lower our classroom size with one building, and we got the money, that seems like a slam dunk to me. And I don't think there's a referendum that wouldn't pass when you start telling everybody that their kids can stay in their own neighborhoods now and they don't have to bus them across town. I don't know, that's just my gut. I think it would pass on both sides of that fence.
Well, that's the political piece, is that you've got all these conservatives saying that a referendum is going to pass, then, I mean, we're not asking for any additional money. That's a pretty,
Well, and I'm not gonna guarantee on a 5-section, depending on how much it's gonna cost, in the future, that it's something we can absorb. So that's something we'd have to take a look at once we have all those numbers to make sure that, yeah, can we fit it in? Because now we're talking from a 3-section, that's what is included in the projections that I put together. And now if we're looking at a 5-section, or whatever we want to call it, a 4-section with an ELDC, and we're kind of looking at making that a bigger building than what we originally thought, the cost is going to look a little different. So I definitely would want to take a look at that as well before we guarantee that, okay, do we need to ask for more money? I mean, I just want to be very transparent there. I'm not going to make that statement until we know all the numbers.
Oh,
I agree.
Yeah.
Smart,
I agree
absolutely.
completely. I think we need all that information.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't vote on it without it.
Yeah, no,
So
I
count
mean, no, yeah.
Jamie,
But I just want to know that it's not an option, I guess, more than anything, right?
What's that?
The ability to do that and solve both problems simultaneously.
Well, we need to know if it is an option, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we can rule it out, then so be it. We move on to the next best thing. But
Right.
I don't feel like we're there yet, at least.
Yeah, we would be irresponsible not to explore that option, I feel like.
Jamie wanted to make another comment.
Just one point. Those numbers that Cindy has presented on costs are $2,023.
Sure.
Right. I'll say that for the benefit of the public. The costs we're looking at now are $22, $23. We know what will happen with costs year to year to year. Yeah.
It's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure where we're at as a board. It sounds like we would like to bring this back, at least for more information.
They're $23 on all of those projects, not just one of them. So, no matter which one we go.
Oh, right.
They're all prices from today. So,
Right.
I mean, it's.
Can somebody help me on what it takes to pass a referendum? Is it the majority of the people who vote in that election? Or,
That's a vote yes.
and this is a potential 24 election?
Mayor.
A presidential?
Yeah, we did presidential
It'd be
primary.
a big turnout.
It'd be a big turnout.
Oh, yeah, that's what I know.
And the actual referendum process, like you mentioned, I mean, as a district, we provide data, we provide the information, but we can't campaign specific. I mean, that is not allowed in terms of what the district can do, but we provide the information, and then community groups get together and they campaign, similar to what we did back in 2007, for those that remember that process.
Yeah, so if you're in the public and listening, it would be helpful if you let us know if you support a referendum or not. Okay, so we do have consensus to bring this back, though, to continue talking about it.
I'd say to bring it back for information, like more information would be good. I'm not sure if we'll be ready to vote quite yet.
Okay.
And if we've got to let our friends at NIU know that we're gonna be a little bit delayed in that decision. I think I would agree with doing it. How you guys?
Yeah, I think there's more discussion needed to be had.
Maybe they say they don't want to wait for us, and that helps us make our decisions.
Well, I know if, in terms of waiting, meaning that they need to decide if they want to move the School of Nursing out now or later. So that really is the main thing that they're concerned about. Do they need to basically move out and renovate another space? And when they want to do that. I mean, from what I understand, they would only do that if we wanted that space sooner rather than later. Or would they stay there for a little while longer?
Okay.
Did you want me to go through the financial projections or? I feel like in terms of the more information in regards to building something that could accommodate an elementary and an ELDC whether it be a 3 or 4 I'm just, you know, thinking in terms of, on a vacant piece of property, I would like to see what those numbers look like and incorporate those in here as well as an option.
That probably makes the most sense.
And then present that all together.
Yeah, yeah. I really feel like we really need to have an idea of what that number might look like and how that can get embedded into our operating funds, or do we need a little help to do that, depending on what size we're looking at.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely, so we can have a robust
Tammy be here
conversation.
next meeting?
Will Tammy be here next meeting? Will Tammy be here next
Yes,
meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's a lot of work. Thank you.
All right, subject B is
Thank you,
the.
Jamie.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Jamie, for
Yes, Jamie,
coming.
thank you.
Feel free to stay for the rest if you like, or head out if you want. Subject B is the DHS Student Council IASC State Convention overnight trip, and this is information. Donna Larson. Thank you.
All right, I will be brief, excuse me. So student council is offering, a little short, is able to go to a state conference May 4th through the 6th. So it is an overnight conference. They will be bringing, I believe, approximately 15 attendees. They will be leaving DeKalb High School on a minibus, and they will return Saturday afternoon, May 6th. So that was just for everyone for informational. Any questions?
Consensus to bring it back for action?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Subject C, out-of-state travel, Midwest Management Summit, information, Ben Bale.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So one of the employees, Jamie Hernandez, is looking to attend the Midwest Management Summit, which is in Minnesota. Conference runs from April 30th to May 4th. The hotel and passes are covered in the $2,649 cost, and he is planning on driving himself back and forth. But it covers the majority of things that we manage within the district and would be worth him attending.
Does this come out of, I don't know exactly how professional learning budgets always work. Is that do you have a department budget for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions? Consensus to bring this back for action?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Subject D, out-of-state travel requests, Association of Two-Way Dual Language Conference, June 22nd to the 24th, 2023. Information, AJ Crook and Billy Wermo.
Hi, AJ's got a class tonight, so it'll just be me. But as you all know, we're blessed to have a two-way dual language program. We are rolling up now to 3rd grade, and we've sent all our teachers to teaching for biliteracy. So now we're just asking for our 3rd grade to be able to go, along with 2 administrators that are in our two-way dual language program or buildings that have not gone. So this would be paid out of our language instruction ed program grant that we have, Title III.
Any questions? Consensus to bring it back for action?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
Subject E is Embrace IEP contract, and this is information, Kyle Gertis.
Over the course of this year, excuse me, the Student Services Department, which consisted of a mix of teachers, administrators, have been exploring a different IEP data management system than what we've been using for the last 15 years. The reason for us looking at another option is really coming from staff working in the building, staff coming from other districts that are a little bit more accustomed to other platforms and experience with what they would report as easier navigation across the site. After kind of getting a recommendation from the group, we decided to move forward with a new management system for next school year called Embrace IEP. In addition, with a similar package, which is Embrace DS, which basically compiles our Medicaid fee-for-service data and allows us to then communicate with the business office, submit to the state for reimbursement. The fee for the initial term of the contract, which would be for once board approves through the rest of this academic year, is $13,611.52, and that will be funded using the Individual with Disabilities and Education Act grant monies. The reason that we would like to move forward or need to move forward with the contract now is so we can start the process of migrating the data as well as training staff, which will start this spring, continue through the summer, as well as in the next school year. Not up for a vote necessarily right now, but I do anticipate as we get closer to the end of the spring semester, I'll be coming forward with another contract that'll cover the 23-24 school year, and estimated cost for that as of right now is $14,653.80, and that again will be paid for out of the IDEA grant.
Is the cost comparable for what you pay now for the system you're using?
It is. It's just a little bit more expensive. Part of that is because of the kind of the front loading of the migration as well as training. But in comparison, it's just about $2,000 or so more, depending on what our package is with Service Tracker year to year.
And you feel like this is going to be a more efficient and effective system?
Yeah, my Service Tracker has been great. Their customer service is phenomenal. However, we've learned that there's more efficiency in the system, and we feel like it's going to benefit our staff, especially the staff that have experience with Embrace, which is a pretty widely used one, at least in Illinois. The other thing it allows us to do is really share information. Be careful how I say that. Yeah. The student moves to our district, say from Barrington, and they use Embrace. It's very easy to just click and transfer that information over, as opposed to our current system, which requires more of a manual upload.
Yeah, I saw that it has all the SOPA built in.
Yeah.
So
Agreement's been signed and attorneys have been have vetted the contracts with us.
And it's essentially, it would help free up more time.
Yes. Yeah. I'll say initially, any change and anytime you learn a new system, I do anticipate it's going to be some growing pains. But yes, everything we learn and we feel confident it's going to make us more efficient.
Any other questions? Consensus to bring it back for action?
Yes.
We've already signed the contract. Should we just vote for it now?
No, I haven't signed the contract.
Oh.
In my mind, I have.
In your mind? Okay. What the hell? Knock it out.
Subject F, secondary algebra geometry, algebra 2 materials request information, Sarah Montgomery and Amy Broadcourt.
Good evening, everybody. We are here to talk about what I affectionately call AGA, which is Algebra, Geometry, Algebra 2 for our secondary students. These curriculum resources would service both our middle school and high school students. I'll start us off and then I'll hand it over to Amy Broadcourt, our secondary STEAM manager. The process started several years ago when we started looking at our current resources that are from Pearson on the Realize platform. Pearson was bought out by Savvis, and our product is from 2015. They no longer support our resources because they have updated, upgraded. So when we started this journey a few years ago, we extended our licensure. We cannot continue to do that with Fidelity as they're no longer continuing to support and update those electronic resources. And our data trends for the last 5 years in math have not shown the growth that we've expected. This is not new data that you've seen, but as we're looking at our resources available to our classes and our students, we are looking for resources that provided enrichment, embedded resources and platforms for our students to explore and interact with mathematics in a project-based theme and real-world application, and then also data and assessment embedded, which will also support our enrichment, remediation, any small group instruction support that we need, and also our PLC process. The process began in October of 2020, right in the thralls of COVID. We started looking at what do our resources not do for us, what do we want them to do for us in supporting our students. So we had a team of teachers from both the middle school and high school from the different AGA series and support programs look at a series of resources and look at the established requirements that we wanted. We wanted to make sure that they were student-centered, of course Common Core aligned, bringing in that project-based learning, real-world application, digital resources that are updated and updated frequently, and making sure that the different resources are embedded for our students to access easily, and provide differentiation for our instruction. So if our students are needing support in the lower level standards, in the higher level, that we could have our students access that. We also wanted a program that identified the gaps for each student and a pathway to bridge those gaps. A series of 8 different materials back in 2020 were looked at. The ed reports looked at, we only selected ones that were rigorous in meeting our expectations in focus and coherence, rigor in mathematical practices, and also alignment. We narrowed down the set of materials for 2 publishers, and the presentation of both companies were given to our group of teachers. Both a couple of years ago and then again to really look at, as we looked at these resources, utilize these resources, which one will meet our needs the best. Based on those presentations, along with the earlier work from the team, we evaluated the materials, and here are the results.
So this is where I came in. So I started this year, and during this process, we had 2 presentations come forward from 2 different companies, and we decided McGraw-Hill Reveal Math with Alex was the, well, the teachers really felt that would be best and would fit the needs of our students the best. The rationale behind that was a lot of what Sarah was talking about, the real world application, these launch lessons, which would engage students to, be excited, hopefully, to learn math, and let's see, how can we apply what we're learning? What's the big picture? Not just learning these skills in isolation. Another great feature is that it does fully integrate with Clever and Google Classroom. Each lesson has these prereq skills tested beforehand, which is really important because this is where we're seeing the gaps. If the students don't have these skills ahead of time, they're not going to be successful in the future lessons. So this is already embedded in it for our students and for our teachers to look at, as well as exit tickets at the end to give us even more information. Did they learn what we wanted them to learn? We also have an embedded personal tutor within each lesson. So if a student is absent or if a student is there and just did not understand, they can go home, take the materials, click on the link, and there is a tutor there that will go over examples with them. Vocabulary activity. Now, I really feel that vocabulary is a huge thing that we need to be hitting on in our math classrooms, because the next bullet there, the ACT and SAT practice tests, I think that's a little bit where we struggle. They may word the question differently, so working on that vocabulary will help them be more successful. The dynamic reporting, so this supports the work of the PLCs because this will give us data. And then the one thing that was very unique with McGraw-Hill is Alex. So Alex is it's an online assessment program, and it's adaptive questioning, and each student will take like their first diagnostic test, and it's like a pie chart, and it tells them where they're at for algebra or for geometry or algebra 2 as far as those skill sets go. And then they can work either at their own levels, or the teacher can actually assign lessons that correspond with upcoming material. This is really great for teachers to identify ahead of time, okay, where are the gaps, what do students need, what do I really need to focus on, and it also follows them throughout. So it doesn't just stop in Algebra 1, they will have it for Geometry and Algebra 2, because each of those classes are going to teach different skills, so we'll need to know what else is missing or where those gaps are. Some more about the differentiation in the data. So the one really nice thing that Reveal does is it gives different sets of questions. They call them approaching level, on level, and beyond level. So it already differentiates for us. So the teacher can go in there and look at the different modules. They call units modules. So you can go in and look at the different modules and say, okay, I have this student that's like excelling So let's go to some beyond level questions versus now I need to work maybe with a small group of students that are approaching level and they can pull from there. So that's a nice feature that they have. We've got resources that are available in Spanish as well. The multiple assessment options, again, the pre-assessment, the post-assessment, also the fact that we can pull that data for PLC use. It's very easy to do common formatives, common summatives, even quick 5-question, exit tickets that you can bring in and talk with your colleagues during a PLC time and say, what does the data show us? The teachers were given demo accounts for both of the two products that we looked at the end, and they were able to get in there. They were given a teacher demo account as well as the student demo account, so they can see like what does it look like on their end as well as what does it look like for the student. So those are both moved in there as well. And then the last 2 slides are the costs. We don't have to buy any land or buildings for this, so that's good. But the first page is for the student part, the 6-year digital bundle. So this would be a 6-year commitment, and it includes the ALEX for all 3, algebra, geometry, algebra 2. And then also just a set of textbooks for each classroom. We're only looking to do about 10 actual physical textbooks per classroom because nobody really uses them anymore except for like when wonderful technology goes down and we need something, right? So that does include, yeah, so we did include that. So this first page is the student costs, and this would cover 1,600 students. And then on the second is for the teachers. So this looks like about 55, 60 teachers it would cover. So we're not just talking the primary teacher, but the co-teachers, any supports, everybody would be able to have access to get in to the materials as well. Also included in the cost would be professional development for the teachers. So they would have time, it's 3 sessions, so we would look to start a session like around summertime, and then let them get in there, and then maybe meet up with them again like in October, what else do you need, and then kind of follow up at the end of the year. Any questions?
Yes. I've noticed that this presentation, the current book, if you will, was done in 2020. In the 6-year license that we're going with, if they update it, do we get the new updated information, or are we committed to just this 2020 version?
I believe, I do not want to misspeak, and I could double check, but I believe anytime they make an update to a digital platform, it is included.
Yes. It is, and then once they release a new, say in 2024, then we would not get all new resources that reflect the new physical text, but they will continue to support this resource.
So this will be used at the middle and high school levels, depending on where students are in their math.
Correct. For algebra, geometry, and algebra 2.
What grade would they start using this?
So for the Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 series, we do have some middle school students, 7th and 8th grade, that would start in Algebra 1.
Okay.
It's mostly 8th grade. We do have a handful that would actually do the Algebra 1 and Geometry once they hit 8th grade, but that's really a small group.
Do you feel like it aligns well to what we're using at the lower grades?
So middle school also uses Reveal Math right now.
Oh, okay. So it aligns very well.
Well, yes.
Okay. What about I guess, yeah, okay. Makes sense.
So you had mentioned that was a 6-year lease, right, or a 6-year contract. But the last contract, they stopped supporting the materials after 7 years. Sounds like 'cause we got it in 2015 and they no longer are supporting it. So is this something where we'd get it and then 6 years later they don't support it anymore, or is there any way that we get more than 6 years out of this?
That is the trend. That is the trend with resources right now. So typically you get about 7 years.
See, that's
They'll
why
say,
books
we'll
are so great.
continue to support. You can extend your contract, or get a 1 year in between, but it's
Right.
about 7 years.
So
And
they-
gone
they
are the
want you
days
to-
of 15-year-old textbooks with some of these resources.
Sure, because they want to spend $200,000 every 6 years.
But is that a 6 or 7 year based off of this edition?
This is their newest edition. It is off of this edition, but they will continue to support.
So the 2020 really is gonna be more for the physical textbook. The digital platform, which is what basically everybody's gonna be using, whatever updates they make yearly, we will get those updates, because that's digitally. But the actual physical textbook, we would have to go out and buy more physical textbooks if they change the copyright on it.
So in addition to purchasing a new curriculum, if we're seeing our performance numbers not where we want to see them, I guess what additional things are we doing to support students and improve performance numbers? And I heard you mention that this makes it easier to do common, formative and summative. Is that something that we're already doing in the district across the board in middle school and high school? Are we doing common and formative? Or common, summative, and formative?
They are. The math department is, and we're making sure that as we're bringing in new resources, we're continuing to hone and further develop those. As far as other supports with the math, the high school's made quite a few shifts. As you know, you have already approved different resources, teachers to lower classroom sizes at the freshmen. And now, what can we do to level up those? That has seen a high rate of efficacy. We've also continued to use and expand our math interventionists. That has seen a good deal of measurable success.
And that's where the Alex piece comes in, because that is something that they can utilize that they will have access to as well.
The tutor?
Mhm.
That's what
The Alex is the individualized learning path that they will take.
That differentiates
conversation.
basically.
Yeah.
I have a junior.
Talking about a whole different conversation. This agenda item is to pick a book.
Yeah, well, we're still talking about it.
Fine. Well, we're here to critique the entire math curriculum. I think we're just here to decide if we want to pick this book. So.
Well, they reference making common, formative, and summative assessments. So I'm asking if they're doing that across the board already.
Yes,
how that
they are.
relates to like
Continue.
discussions and PLCs.
Well, we're going to have those discussions again. That's all I'm saying. We have them every year. So let's just move on.
So, what was the last piece you were talking about? What were you saying? Oh, Alex. So, and that differentiates.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any other questions? Consensus to bring this back for action?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Subject G is the Summer Academy 2023 proposal. We're already there. And this is information with Billy Wermo, Kyle Gertis, and Sarah Montgomery.
I'm trying to run up here.
Yes, please use the microphone.
Notice he's knocking me out of the way.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start out with K5. So incoming kindergartners all the way through fourth graders who are gonna be in fifth grade we're looking at summer school again at Tyler Elementary from Monday through Friday, 8 to noon, June 5th through June 30th, with Juneteenth off, with an hour and 45 minutes focusing on literacy inquiry-based project learning, and an hour and 45 on STEAM theme instruction, and 30 minutes of recess. And students are going to get breakfast and a bag lunch to take home. We're including our monolingual and our bilingual students, and we are inviting our students at the 30th to 50th percentile, and along a couple others below with teacher feedback. So that is our elementary.
Okay, next I'll talk about middle school and high school. The middle school will run on a similar timeline, but Monday through Thursday, June 5th to the 30th. Again, no school on Juneteenth, and our program will continue to be at NIU through their STEAM program. This year, they'll change things a little bit based on feedback of students and families. Last year, they had where they rotated between the different weekly themes. This year, the students will be able to sign up for which areas they would like to focus on. So maybe they have one area over another throughout that. And they will also receive breakfast, and it will be 4 hours a day. And registration hopefully will open here soon, and we'll have spots available for our rising middle students, so current 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade. For the high school, they will run June 5th to June 30th. Again, no sessions on Juneteenth. They will do Monday through Friday for 4 hours a day. Linked within the agenda are the course offerings. We are excited to say or announce that we will have an increased offering in our credits for advancement. So our incoming freshmen maybe are seeking to get ahead with their credits. So we had such a high interest there, we have increased our sections within that.
And last but not least, we have our extended school year program, which covers early childhood through age 22. These are for, this programming is for students who have identified individual education plans, but also meet the criteria for extended school year, meaning that they show regression in difficulty recruitment of skills after an extended period of time. And so the process for identifying students is really led by our case managers, as they have analyzed data that they've collected around the students' progress throughout the year, particularly looking at areas when they've had a break in in-person instruction. Could be winter break, spring break, or more longitudinal data for a student who's been with us for a while. Start and end times are the same in terms of dates. This will be housed once again out at Cortland Elementary School, but we will have a continue to utilize the high school for our soul and transition programming. This year, Kim Lyle will be our coordinator of ESY. Once again, she's had that experience in the past, and you know, it's hard to. We anticipate about 150 students in the program. That's going off of what we typically see, but again, it's based on individual student needs, so that number could fluctuate, and then families, of course, don't have to accept extended school year, but if they qualify, it is available for them. And with that, we'll open up the questions.
Sounds great.
Great. Any
No
no
questions.
questions? You have a question?
No.
Oh,
Census.
yeah. I was trying to decide if I had a question or not,
okay.
but
Okay.
I'm
We're stuck.
good. Do we have consensus to bring this back for action?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. This is like very comprehensive and a good thing. Number 8, superintendent update, and subject A, superintendent report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to end the night with a bunch of celebrations. So we want to congratulate our junior Jacob Luce, who has taken 6th place in state in wrestling. Our senior Eden Russell in gymnastics, who took 4th place in state for the vaults, and 9th in state in the uneven bars. Good for her. I don't know if I can do that. Good job. Good job. Our gymnastics team finished 4th place in the state. So congratulations to all of our gymnasts. Great job. And our wrestlers. Our boys DeKalb Co-op swim team won sectional and will be going to state this weekend. So good luck to you all there, gentlemen. And then finally, I just want to remind everyone that the Wirtz Award nominations is out. Please consider nominating a colleague. You know, we are looking for you to have plenty of nominations. Sadly, at this moment, I believe I don't have any nominations, and I know DeKalb can do much better than that. So I challenge every single one of our schools and our colleagues in our schools to nominate somebody from within the building so that they can say that DeKalb really represented for the Wirtz Award nomination. And that's it for me.
I think I would just add to that, I did see that I think we had 18 finalists in forensics go to state as well recently, which is amazing. So.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn. It is recommended that the Board of Education adjourn. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.